All right, before I move on with bag 3, which includes some of the rear end components, including the rear shock tower, I do usually seal the graphite shock towers, and I'm just going to give them a little scuff with this pad first. Sometimes you could use a little bit of sandpaper, but I really do think it's just about kind of cleaning up the edges a little bit, and then using some tire glue to seal the edges. So we're just going to do a quick scuff. You know, ultimately I think it's mostly just that top side, the exposed side, and the corners where the upper shock mounts are that really need it. Typically I do the whole thing anyway. So we'll give those a little bit of a cleanup and a wash, a dry scrub I suppose, and then we'll use some glue to seal those up. All right, so I've got my tire glue here. I've done a little scuff, and then we'll put just a very small bead of glue there, and then take a knife blade and we're just gonna smooth it out so it creates just a nice coating, nice level, and just kind of float that over. And it doesn't really take much. Looks like maybe I could use just a gob there. There we go. There we go. Good. So I'll do this all the way around, and then I'll use just a zip tie and hang them up to dry for a little while. Might have gotten a little heavy there. It's all right. It's on the bottom side. Nobody's gonna notice it on the bottom. There. Good. All right, so then I'll just take a little zip tie here, and then I've got a little rack over here I'm just gonna hang them from, and that way they can dry off. I'll save you the boredom of watching me do the front. All right, while I was waiting for the glue to dry on the shock towers, I kind of got the hardware out that was associated with this bag, so it's kind of organized. That way we're ready to go. First up, for step 3, we're going to attach the shock tower to the gearbox with 16 mil in the bottom screw holes. Right through there. It's one of those rare times when I probably could just use the electric driver because it's a long screw, but like I said before, I tend to, on the initial build anyway, do everything by hand. There we go, pulling that tower right together. Good. Good. And since we're going right into the gearbox, I always just double check for free movement to make sure that nothing gets bound up as we move along, and that feels good. All right, and then 10 millimeter on the top ones. I think these are the 10 mils, but I'm just gonna double check it. Nope, that must have been a 12. That's a 10 right there. So we'll get those in there. There we go. Looks good. All right, next up are the wing mounts that will go on the back side of the shock tower. I gotta say, I don't know if they've changed this design at all, but you know, I found taking the wing on and off on my 23 that these were right on the edge of getting stripped out, and we all know that X-ray parts are not especially cheap. I wouldn't mind if they had kind of like a, I don't know, a longer screw or a lock nut on the bottom or something that they fed into, just to help with reliability. But all right, initial setting for the wing mounts are the top and third. So there's that one. And this is using the 10 mil screws. So top hole and third hole. There we go. I'm gonna go back and compare these, see if they're exactly the same part or maybe a little bit different. Maybe I just take my wing on and off too many times. Sometimes I'll take the wing off for transportation because I can fit it in a bag without the wing. Oh, jeez. Distracted by this trick piece of aluminum here laying in front of me. I think that's going to be coming right up. Obviously one of the big changes for the 25. Final snug on those wing mounts. That looks great. So that's all good to go. Starting to look a little bit more like a buggy. That's great. Okay, looks like we are gonna set that aside for a minute. And now we're gonna get out the chassis and that trick piece of aluminum that's gonna mate right to it. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. Everybody knows about Associated and the B7 and the motor mount and the chassis flex, and it seems like this is a pretty slick solution to getting rid of that waterfall brace, but still adding enough, you know, stiffness in the rear of the chassis. And they've made it adjustable as well. So I'm, yeah, really curious about that. I see with the 5-gear, you do need a different chassis brace. So it looks like it's included with the kit. And I gotta say, the 5-gear, I think it's like 75 bucks. And of all the things, like, I don't think that sounds like a terrible price, especially for X-ray quality. So I'm probably gonna run this for a little while when the season starts up in the fall, and then shift over to the 5-gear. Maybe I'll check in with some of the other guys that are running X-ray. I don't even know if they're using the 5-gear or not. All right, so we're gonna be putting this on, and then the C&D mounts and the in the arms here in just a minute. All right, we're going to be putting on the rear suspension arms, kind of getting that assembly ready to go before we mount it to the chassis. I've already removed the correct pill inserts for the C&D blocks, and then the spacer that is used for the arm is molded into the arm, which is kind of a funny design, but so be it. And I'm just going to, oops, I thought I was gonna trim that bit off. Well, maybe we'll use a different set of cutters. This might not be a great idea. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Good Lord. There we go. I'm just out of screen, but I'm just sitting that spacer down on the edge of my workbench where there's some exposed wood, and then just using the X-Acto knife to trim that off. It's pretty sturdy plastic. All right, so these are gonna go in that direction. These are closed, 1 degree top center. Just like that. And same on the front. And let's see, just make sure I'm getting the orientation on this correct. That's got that. Kind of scoop out towards the top, and that's gonna go just like that. There we go. So that is in the correct orientation. 1 degree top center. That is in the correct orientation. 1 degree top center. So that's good. And I'm gonna put this pin through here. And then I'm just making sure that I have my arms in the correct orientation. So this is the right arm, and you can tell it's got the the ball mount there for the anti-roll bar, and the washer, that little spacer, goes next, followed by the arm, just like that. We'll do the other side right now, so we're kind of putting them together front to rear. Spacer, arm. And I did notice on the carpet edition they've included the graphite arms. You can tell it's got the little G right there for graphite, which is a change. I believe in the last kit, or at least the 23 that I'm used to, they included, I think it was hard as far as the plastic was concerned on the arms. All right, now we've got this going in the correct direction. That's going to go in there, just like that, and just like that. So that is sitting there ready to go. And it looks like I would put the motor mount on first, or not the motor mount, but this chassis brace. I've noticed there are some guys that mentioned not being able to get their motor in. There's this slight relief on the chassis brace. You just got to make sure that is angled up so the motor can slide against it. If you mount it upside down, it's going to hit it, and you won't be able to have adjustability there. And it looks like the front set of holes lines up with the front set, just like that. And our initial setting on that brace is to include only 4 screws, 2 on each side, in the front and rearmost holes on each side. And so that's what we'll do. Anytime we're doing screws into aluminum, we're gonna make sure that we use some thread lock. So I'm gonna throw some of that on there. I don't know how I feel about this paste thread lock. Sometimes I feel like it's great because it's easy to work with, but other times I feel like it doesn't hold as well as the traditional liquid kind. So I don't know. I've never really had any trouble with anything really falling apart, but when I have taken screws off before that I've used this paste, it does seem like they come apart fairly easy, but who knows, maybe that's good. These are these tiny little short 5mm screws, but they fit perfectly. So again, we're doing 4 screws total, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, which would be right there. And I just think this is a trick piece of design and engineering. Whoops. And they seem to have had excellent luck with the competitiveness of the kit, and there's not nearly as much complaining that I hear. I hear a lot of people complaining about durability issues, particularly on the B7. And the Schumacher seems to be known to break all of its plastic bits fairly regularly. And TLR just announced their new buggy, the, what is it, 22X or something? I've never had a TLR or a low C kit. Well, I did have a Mini B, and I hated that thing. everything broke on it. All the parts were just as expensive as full-size parts, and it was miserable. Some fun while driving it, but overall was miserable. All right, we're going to screw the C&D blocks on. Uses 8mm screws. Again, I'm going through metal, so I'm just going to throw a little bit of thread lock on there. And this is a pretty trick setup because you can see we have the chassis flex mount, what do we call it? The aluminum chassis brace. So we've got that mounted to the main chassis, and then the C block goes right over that. And when you mount the C block to the chassis, it's going through the chassis, through the brace, and into the mount. And that has got to be a pretty sturdy setup. I've never had any durability issues with my X-ray stuff, but this has got to be a pretty stout setup. I'm not a super reckless driver. On my buggy, I ran that for 2 years and I never broke anything. I replaced parts on it, but just for the sake of maintenance and some hop-ups. On my truck, on the XT2, I did break a couple of arms. And then I broke 2 arms, and after I broke the second one, I moved to the solid arm design, and I haven't had any trouble since. Is this thing not lining up or what? What's going on here? There we go. There we go. I just didn't have the pins all the way in. It is it's late June, and my racing season came to an end a couple of weeks ago, and I'm just under no rush at all to put this thing together, as you can probably tell, because I'm going to put it together and it's going to sit around for a few months before racing starts up again. Probably late October, maybe October, early November. All right, so we have those on there, and oh, I don't like that. That side looks great. No problem there. This one, that doesn't look good. We're gonna take a minute and see if we can free that up.